Okay, everybody, welcome to Try 2. I'm just going to go over a couple of the quick things to look out for in trimester 2, as well as some of the tips and tricks to really start yourself off on the right foot and to get yourself ahead with all of this. So first off, here is kind of what your classes are going to look like. You'll have biochem, biomechanics and motion palp, chiro methods, clinical imaging 1, gross anatomy 1, microbiology and immunology, and physiology 1. Understand that this try is going to be quite a bit of a course load. There's a lot of very science heavy courses, but you do also get your very first experience kind of with getting your hands on training and starting to learn some of the palpation skills that you'll need from now on. So I want to start going over a couple of these classes, as well. This is also a good peek into my notes themselves, kind of what they contain. And so that way, if you're interested, the link to fill out the Google form to get access to those is found in the description of this video. Okay, so starting off with biochemistry. So Biochem 2 is going to be a little bit more in depth than Biochem 1 was. And there's going to be, honestly, a little bit more meat to this material compared to Biochem 1. Really, really good strategy to start with is make sure you look at the book. I'm also currently in the process of recording videos here for every single chapter of the book in this section for this class. So watch for those. There's already a couple of them out right now, and I hope to have more of them out before the start of the trimester. So within my notes, you can see you'll have a combination of different PDF documents as well as PowerPoints, as well as a couple of these sort of study guides that I put together a couple of trimesters ago when I was working with a couple of other students. If you get my notes, I think these right here are probably one of the best examples of kind of how you'd like to organize and go about part of this class. Let me see if I can get this open real quick. A lot of this is from the book reading as well as some of my own research, looking into other areas of information. So it gives you just a really good breakdown, pictures of everything, kind of all encompassing both like what he teaches in his PowerPoints as well as the information that I took out that's pertinent. So really, really like these. You'll see a couple things that should look familiar. These G protein coupled receptor reactions. All of that was in Biochem 1. As well as here, these are going to be, I have a handful of practice questions for some of these topics as well. So I just have these two specifically for those. But honestly, if you do want to purchase the notes, look at these two examples and base your studying and everything off of those. This is one of the best ways that I've done to sort of put together all of this material to make it coincide a little bit nicer for kind of a straightforward learning style. So continue, and in each of my different notes, you will see different notes and stuff on the edges of the PowerPoints, much like I did my Biochem 1 as well. So moving on to biomechanics and motion palpation. This is a class that a lot of people tend to have difficulty with. Part of that being, I think, a little bit of miscommunication with the instructor, as well as just it's a lot of new material that you really haven't seen before. So again, I recommend getting through these. I included in here study guides. I also have some of the listings exercise. You will learn a lot about the chiropractic listing systems. There's four or five main systems that we use when you're talking about identifying different subluxations of the spine, and you need to learn and know all of those. So that's tends to be a little bit where people start to trip up. And honestly, this class, it's a lot of material in a very short period of time. Chiro methods, this class tends to be a little bit more laid back. Really enjoyed it. The biggest thing I will say with chiropractic methods is that you need to be hands-on. You cannot be just passively going through the motions anymore. This is where you're really going to start to get your hands-on practice. You will be required to purchase a dry spine as part of your grade for this class. And the reason behind that is that you need to practice your palpation skills. The best way that I have found to do this is to close your eyes, place your spine on a table or a couch or something in front of you, and actually using your fingers to palpate the spine and try and count the individual vertebrae as you go down. Feel them, identify what vertebrae that you're on, where you're actually palpating on that vertebrae, and so on. And then what you can do is you start with putting like a thin sheet over it, and then you fold that sheet in half, and then you fold it in half again, and then you get a little bit, you can get a fluffier towel and put a towel over the top of it, and then put the sheet and the towel, and so on and so forth, and just keep adding those layers and palpating to start to develop that fine sense of what you're feeling. I don't know if they still do it, but he would also do a penny versus dime activity, which is worth a decent portion of your grade, where you reach into a bag and there's 2 coins, there's a penny and there's a dime, and you need to feel them, and based on how they feel, you need to identify whether you have a penny or you have a dime. That I just kept a penny and a dime in my pocket, or a handful of them in my pocket for a while, and just practiced that. And honestly, it's really good for getting that fine motor skills, just that fine palpation skill started to develop. Clinical Imaging 1. So this one's actually really cool because this is one of the first classes that is new, actually, since I started the program. And with my notes in this section, you're actually really cool because you get 2 sets of notes. Mine and other students, we collaborated on this in order to put together both what I had and what she had. We had different instructors for this course, but the new instructor actually used a lot of the same or similar material, just kind of reformatted it, revamped it, and added some stuff to it. So you have both sets of those notes here within this, and this is where you'll really start to get into looking at images. You'll start to look at images, start to see what things look like, and understanding a little bit more about what you are supposed to see versus not see on both X-ray, on CT, ultrasound, as well as MRI images. So that one's a really cool thing. Getting to the next 3 courses, these next 3 classes are probably where most people are going to struggle the most. So Gross Anatomy 1, this is going to be your first experience, depending on what your undergrad was, one of your first experience in an actual gross anatomy lab. The gross anatomy lab, you'll be dissecting a cadaver as a table. You'll have anywhere from 6 to 8 people or so in a group, and you'll have a cadaver and have the opportunity to cut and to dissect and to learn from the individual that is on your table. This is a very humbling experience, in my opinion, and definitely something that needs to be approached with a lot of humility and a lot of respect for these people that have donated their bodies to allow us to learn from them and learn how to better heal the human body. That being said, there is quite a bit of material here, both lecture and lab. So when I took this course, my instructor's name was Dr. Siniera, and he was a fabulous anatomist. And he gave us these PowerPoints that are just chock full of information. and very, very well organized, very well thought through, very thorough, and I absolutely loved his course. His way that he questioned us was very challenging, and from what I have heard, the current instructor has kept some of those questions. So I'd highly recommend, again, I would highly recommend this class, taking this class serious and getting a jump start on stuff with all of this material. So there's two different portions of this class, the lecture portion and the lab portion. The lecture portion is going to be really just knowing your anatomy and knowing the function of that anatomy. Similar to DAA, just a little bit more in depth. The lab portion, I would like to state that the grade that you receive in the lab portion of this class will be a direct reflection of how much time you've spent in the lab. The more time that you spend in the anatomy lab, looking at the structures and practicing on the cadavers, the better off you will be. A couple of really good tips. As the instructors are running the lab, they will be going around and looking at the different cadavers, and oftentimes on the whiteboard towards the front of the room, you'll start to see that they'll put the cadaver numbers along with specific structures, as stating that those specific cadavers have really visible and nice of those specific structures, which might be normally more difficult to pin. So if you pay attention to that, you will be able to go and see what specific structures there are on specific cadavers that they might pin. Along with that, each week you will get something like this, which is what the different structures that you need to be able to identify. So here are structures on the bones, and here are testable cadaver structures. So you'll get a list like this. I highly recommend taking this list and printing it out or having it ready. Yeah, I would suggest printing it out on paper because you're not allowed to bring phones or electronics of any kind into the cadaver lab. Nothing with a camera in it is allowed in the cadaver lab due to the laws surrounding cadavers and what you're allowed to and not allowed to do with those specific cadavers. So by bringing this in ahead of time, you'll be able to identify specifically what these structures are as you're dissecting, rather than having to go back and try and figure them out. And these are typically in pretty good order of the depth, kind of from top to bottom, if you will, on the cadavers. And again, you might not see every single structure on your cadaver, so it will be really cumbersome to have every single person huddled around trying to dissect at once. So while others are dissecting, use that time to go to other cadavers, go to other teachers, and see what it is that they are doing and what they are looking at. And that will be really, really helpful for you in identifying all of these structures. Finally, I will also put a plug in for my personal favorite. Let me see, find 3D. If you have any sort of device, Google or Apple or anything, there is this app, Anatomy 3D Atlas. This is my favorite app. I've used this since undergrad for anatomy. And this, it's a one-time purchase, so it's not one of those that you have to pay a subscription for or anything. It's around $30 to purchase the full form of this app. And in the app, it allows you to break down the different layers. Let me see if I can see these images. So it allows you to break down the different layers, and you can click on the different muscles and the different structures, and you can slowly peel them away to go deeper and deeper and deeper. It's also really, really helpful for quizzing yourself. You can click the pins button, and a bunch of pins will pop up, and you can try and figure out exactly what the structures are, and then press the pin. As well as when you highlight the different structures, especially the muscles, there will be a little drop-down window that will give you the innervation, the origin, the insertion, as well as the action of those muscles and any other additional information that you would need to know for an exam. So again, this app, Anatomy 3D Atlas, I would highly recommend that app. It's the one that I have used for several years now for my personal use. Let me see. Get back to... Okay. So that's Gross Anatomy 1. Microbiology and Immunology. So this class can be a lot of fun, or it can be a pain in your neck. It depends on what you decide. Personally, the instructor, I absolutely love the instructor, Dr. Adwani. Does an amazing job. I'm not sure if she is the specific instructor now. I believe she is still for the lecture portion. I believe that the lab portion, you will have her assistant, who I had also had in lab when I was there, and they're both great. The biggest thing with this class, the practicals tend to be a little bit easier. With the exams, though, it is a lot of raw memorization of structures and of things, and then looking at different slides and classifications. So stuff like this. So classifications is a big one. So the different classifications of bacteria and the diseases that they cause, all this sort of stuff. There's a lot there. Included in my notes, I have a good bit of practice for these. Different tables and stuff to help with that memorization. This class is going to be about pacing, so make sure that you do not fall behind in this. And the other big thing I can recommend is learn to pronounce every single one of the microbes. If you're able to pronounce it and say it without having to look at the word, you have a much better chance of learning it, retaining it, and understanding what it actually says. But overall, I really enjoyed this class. There is, like I said, quite a bit of memorization to it, but this is also one of the most failed portions on boards. So I would highly recommend, if you learn it well now, you will save yourself a lot of trouble later on down the road. Finally, Physiology 1. This is probably the most failed class at Parker University. One of, at least. The reason being is that honestly, physiology is just sort of a difficult topic to grasp. The current instructor as well, I will say that there are some issues that I personally I wish were different with the way that the instructor teaches the course, or the way that the instructor has formatted certain things. But again, it's not something that's within our power or within our control. So we just need to do the best that we can. With this class, this is a class actually that I tutored for almost 2 years, actually, additionally, and I will be picking it up again this trimester, this fall trimester of 23. And I will be trying to do recorded videos for this class, as well as I think this is a class that there's just so much information, it can be difficult to sort out what is actually important and what is not. So with this class specifically, this is another one, the entire class is going to be cumulative. So if it's going to be cumulative, and I will also say you need to front load this class, meaning that you need to do well at the beginning of this course, because it is not going to get easier as you go along, but it's going to get harder because of that cumulative part of all of her exams and the way that she tests. So that being said, put all of your eggs, I know you usually don't say this, but put all of your eggs in the basket at the beginning of the try. Do the best you possibly can on the first exam, because it is much, much easier to stay out of a hole than it is to dig yourself out of one. Okay? And trust me, if you get into a hole in this class, it is a hard one to get out of. Now, all of that negativity being said, this class, physiology, my bachelor's degree is exercise physiology, and I absolutely love physiology because it is one giant flowchart. The way that physiology works is that everything is connected and it all kind of loops back around. So with that, you need to understand the process at which everything happens, kind of why it's happening, and then follow the flow chart of what is, for example, we'll take a specific ion gate, an ion channel. Is the ion channel open, yes or no? If it's yes, then X, Y, and Z are going to happen. And from X, Y, and Z, from X, this happens, from Y, this happens, from Z, this happens, and so on. If it's a no, then we need to look at, okay, why is it no? Why is it not open? And if it's not open, what is happening as a result of that? And that is A, B, C. And if A is happening, then you see whatever, and if B is happening, you see whatever, and C happening, you see whatever. And eventually it all comes and it all loops back around again. Which, once you understand it, it's really, really exciting, and it's really, really cool. It's really, really interesting stuff. So, again, I highly recommend this, and I do have study guides. You can even see my mentality. Exam 4, lecture material from hell. That was kind of my attitude towards the end. There's a lot of material here. A lot of really, really cool stuff, but it is a lot of material. You'll have about 4 lecture hours a week for all of this material. So plus additional videos that she will provide if you want to watch those. So yeah, I highly recommend. I'll be making some videos on this. Again, I also highly recommend Ninja Nerd. Ninja Nerd has some amazing videos on physiology, and he has a whole physiology section that honestly you can learn 95% of what is in this class from watching his videos as well. So overall, in a nutshell, that is going to be your Try 2 courses. So if you guys need anything or have any questions, feel free to reach out and let me know. Thanks. Have a great day.